just not confident of HAL.
Indian Air Force Chief hits out at HAL. Says confidence in HAL has nosedived.
I am just not confident of HAL, which is very, very wrong thing to happen.
IAF chief worried as HAL lags in supply of Tejas fighter jets. As IAF squadron strength depletes, IAF chief red flags HAL delays. Will HAL wake up and speed up deliveries? That's our top focus on 5 Live.
This isn't the first time that Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh, has red flag delays in Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. He's done that in the past. He's done that privately. He's done that one-on-one with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. He's sensitized the government about delays and he's given details of timelines. In fact, within the Air Force fraternity, while talking to airmen and air warriors, he's given out all these details. That look at the timeline of delays. The aircraft that was supposed to be supplied to the Indian Air Force, that was promised to the Indian Air Force, even the first 40 from 2016 where the delivery started, now it's 2025, the first 40 haven't been provided. So this is when you're talking about just the current form of LCA. What happens to Mark 1A? What happens then to Mark 2? Why these delays? And who in the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is responsible for this? He said very politely, ab maza nahi aa raha hai. The squadron strength, sanctioned squadron strength is 37.5 squadrons. The desire of the Indian Air Force is 42 squadrons. If they're down to 30 squadrons, where you have an expansionist China that's already talking about a 6th generation fighter jet, when you're talking about Pakistan that's being supplied planes by China, how will Indian Air Force touch the sky with glory with depleting squadron strength if the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is not in mission mode? We'll talk about that in greater detail. Where are the problems? What are the solutions? Time to bring in private players. Will Government of India once again be forced to buy foreign aircraft to at least shore up the numbers? All that and much more. But let's begin with this report.
At the moment, I am just not confident of HAL.
Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh at the Yalahanka Air Base targeted the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited with laser-guided precision barbs on delays in fighter jet supplies.
I can only tell you that our requirements and what our worries are. You have to alleviate those worries and make us more confident. We will. At the moment, I am just not confident of HAL, which is very, very wrong thing to happen. No, HAL is our own company. We all have worked there. I also served in HAL as a temporary pilot. I have also been there, and of course, very closely in NFTC. That's like HAL flying only. But I find it that we are just not in mission mode. Everything is ho jayega, karenge.
Hindustan Aeronautics Limited or HAL officials were ripped apart by the quick-fire attack on HAL, unable to meet promised timelines on delivery of Tejas light combat aircraft for the IAF. The IAF chief, who has the responsibility of protecting the vast airspace, is fighting with his back to the wall. The IAF continues to fly the 1960s vintage MiG-21 fighter jets, repeatedly upgrading them and giving a life extension to engines and airframes to maintain the basic minimum squadron strength. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited Chairman and Managing Director quickly responded as the IAF chief's criticism, caught on camera, went viral on social media. The HAL chief insisted They were aware of IAF requirements and were quickly trying to deliver the fighter jets.
Concern of the air chief is understandable. Of course, the squadron strengths are going down. So we have now promised that we will have all these structures ready. And we have conveyed this. In multiple meetings at different levels, we have conveyed this, that we are building this. And once the engines are available, this will start rolling out. So I think the concern is well understood. There's no doubt on that. And as a team, all of us are focused on seeing that this comes, we will start delivering the aircraft.
But this is not the first time that the IAF chief has red flag delays in HAL timelines. Twice in the recent past, he sensitized HAL, saying they did not appear to be in mission mode and had failed to fulfill their promises of delivering the required number of aircraft and meet the deadlines.
First aircraft flew in 2001, 17 years. Then the induction started another 15 years later, 2016. Today we are in 2024. I do not have the first 40 aircraft also. So this is the production capability. We need to do something. And I am very convinced that we need to get some private players in.
There have been multiple delays in the Tejas timelines. Some can rightly be attributed to delays in receiving the General Electric fighter jet engines from the United States of America. But both HAL and the Union government have to sort out issues like bureaucratic delays, capacity building, and full operations from multiple bases and locations. To touch the sky with glory, HAL will have to be on mission mode with the Indian Air Force. With Shivani Sharma in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
Atmanirbhar Bharat is essential in defense manufacturing. The Prime Minister, he said so in very clear terms. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has also spoken of it. But for Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has to deliver. And there are reasons that Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has been sensitized where the problems are, where the niggles are, what needs to be done. There are issues of bureaucratic delays. We'll talk about that in greater detail. But this isn't the first time that the chief has been caught on camera saying so. He's a soldier. He does not mince his words. Listen in to what he said earlier. This was in January. He'd said he'd been promised 11 aircraft. By the time Aero India show happens, he's there at Aero India. Where are those 11 aircraft? They have not been delivered. So promises are made, but they're not kept. Listen in.
Tejas, we started inducting in 2016. 2016. Actually, we should go back to 1984 when we conceived that aircraft. First aircraft flew in 2001, 17 years. Then the induction started another 15 years later, 2016. Today we are in 2024. I do not have the first 40 aircraft also. So this is the production capability. We need to do something. And I am very convinced that we need to get some private players in. We need to have competition. We need to have multiple sources available so that people are wary of losing their orders, that we may not get the next order. Otherwise, things will not change.
So the sting is in the tail. We need to bring in private players. We need to have competition so that players are scared that they may lose business to competition. With Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, are they comfortable? Even if they don't deliver the aircraft, what can Indian Air Force do? They cannot go anywhere because the nation is so fixed, and rightly so, on Atmanirbhar Bharat. I want to bring in our guests on this special broadcast, and we have two test pilots and fighter pilots with us on this special broadcast. I have Air Marshal Madhishwaran joining us on this show, former Deputy Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. I have Group Captain Augustine Vinod joining me on this broadcast. He's a fighter pilot. He's a drone expert. But Air Marshal Madhishwaran, if I could come to you first, sir, you concur with the Air Chief's views that somewhere down the line the impression is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is not in mission mode?
Absolutely. The Air Chief's concern is, absolutely understandable because the Indian Air Force has gone down to 30 squadrons. That's almost at parity with the Pakistan's Air Force strength. And you have a bigger neighbor in the north. And, the authorized strength is not 37, it is 39.5 and increased to 42 squadrons. So we have now if you want to build up, it's going to take more than a decade and a half to actually get back to 42 squadron strength. And obviously the concern, it's been carrying on for more than a decade, the downsizing. And how long can you fly the older aircraft? They have to be phased out at some point of time. So the delivery schedules have been slipping repeatedly, and therefore the chief is extremely concerned about it. He's absolutely right. But notwithstanding that, HAL is not entirely, to be blamed in the sense.
Let's take this step by step. So you concur with the Air Chief. There are major slippages. I want to stay on two parts of this. One, how is HAL not in mission mode? Because that's a very strong statement for a chief to make, Group Captain Vinod, but at the same time, he has to defend the skies with what he has. How is HAL not in mission mode in your appreciation?
In the morning, I was referring to, in another channel, I was referring to a fact that HAL chairman was supposed to be a 3-star general or an air marshal. At that time, I did not take his name. But that is the air marshal who is sitting with us today. A test pilot, Machi sir is a test pilot himself.
Yes.
And I worked with him. And that was the time he was supposed to move from that chair to HAL, and everything was almost done. And if Machi sir had taken over at that time, probably we would have seen a different HAL. But that is exactly what Chief conveyed. He said, I can understand the delays of engines 100%. But where is your 11 Mark 1A aircraft minus the engine? That is a question. So that is where there is a delay. And it's an issue that needs to be approached three-pronged. First and foremost is capacity building, both capacity building in terms of real estate. That means you need to now become bigger in terms of manufacturing. Gone are those days when we are only doing MRO. Second is capacity building in terms of manpower. And you need to pick up bright children from ITI and IITs to your designated training area or a designated training school. HAL has to have a designated training school. These are the visions that Air Marshal had at that time.
Okay.
I had used to have a long chat with them. That's some time back.
Okay, but let me ask Air Marshal Mathishwaran, since you mentioned, and for the benefit of viewers who are looking at this development in the wake of the Air Chief red flagging HAL's slippages, where are those slippages, Air Marshal Mathishwaran, and would a fighter pilot or a test pilot heading HAL bring at least some solution? Is that a solution in your view, or at least some forward movement? Is that required?
There used to be Air Force personnel heading HAL, but that issue, I don't think it's very relevant now to this sub-issue topic. What is more important is why is these slippages occurring? We need to understand that very clearly. Is that the slippages are largely due to the supply chains not being in HAL's control. And here, the important thing to be understood is that the government is responsible to look into this. See, if you are dependent on critical items through the import route, the engine is to be supplied by General Electric, and they have delayed it by more than 2 years. How are you going to produce the aircraft?
Then why is the Air Chief blaming HAL? He should be blaming the government, and he should then be blaming General Electric.
No. I think one needs to understand this very clearly. So there are problems with our industry. HAL's, being the sole manufacturer of the entire thing is overloaded. There's going to be inefficiencies. There's lack of competition. These are factors that HAL is pointing.
So
Chief is
inefficiency.
pointed out,
Talk to us about inefficiency, Air Marshal. Where is the inefficiency that the Air Chief is red flagging? The nation understands. General Electric engines are not in HAL's control, so that the government has to sort out with the United States, and there are external aspects of it. Where is HAL slipping? Is my question.
Gaurav, inefficiency afflicts every industry under the public sector in India. You must understand that fact. That's a cultural problem with India. The efficiency of output of our workers or our system is much less when compared to similar industries in the advanced countries or even for that matter in China.
Anywhere.
So that's everywhere, all over. So it's not just specific to HAL, it's everywhere. So the government again has to look into it, but HAL management can look into it to improve reasonably to certain level. Delivery delays, what Chief is pointing out is there are delivery delays which are fully in HAL's control, which could have been addressed, and those delays are the ones that Chief is pointing out.
And
but
those are the aspects that I want to raise on this broadcast, sir.
Right.
Group Captain Vinod, inefficiency is a major issue. The Indian Air Force has red flagged it in the past in terms of when there have been issues with servicing of aircraft. But in this case, where is the inefficiency that is being pointed out in the first 40 not being delivered, the first 40 aircraft not being delivered yet?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gaurav. And when you, for the sake of our viewers to simplify, let's bring in a small example of car manufacturing in, say, Germany. The right door of the car, reaches, suppose it is supposed to get fitted at 10 o'clock in the morning of 27th, it reaches at 9 o'clock in the morning at the shop floor. You wait for nothing for, in terms of production, when you have to roll out a car in any, or on an aeroplane in any big company, be it Airbus or be it Embraer or be it Boeing. But the problem here is, like Air Marshal pointed out, problem here is for your supply chain, you have a lot of dependencies. B, the money getting released for those dependencies. And C, and most importantly, the work culture. It is 9 to 5, and anything beyond 5 o'clock is overtime. And overtime is 1.5 times you have to pay, and therefore it is cuts down on HAL's bottom line, and therefore it needs to be justified. Lot of such issues are there. See, 1994, I remember Embraer was privatized. Today, where does Embraer stand? And Embraer was a nobody. They started making a cop.
This very clearly indicates there is no accountability. I'm sorry, there is mission mode. And when it comes to national security, when it comes to an expansionist China, Air Marshal Matheswaran, and then if Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is turning around and talking about overtime, we have a huge problem at our hands. You have an expansionist China, you have a terrorist state Pakistan, you have to defend your skies from emerging threats. And is overtime or work culture an issue with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited? Then there appears to be a very, very serious problem that the country must grapple with. And perhaps then you need the right kind of people heading that organization.
Like
Absolutely. Dr. Sunil is a very capable person. I've met him before. He's headed the Hyderabad division and is fully capable of addressing the issue, provided all things are in control. So here you need to look into government's policies. And there is something that Chief mentioned about is we need to bring in private players and bring in competition. This has been said about, we've been talked about this for a long time. Even if you look at China, everything is in a competitive process. So when there is no competition, you have a monopoly. When you have a monopoly, then there is no urgency about timelines in any organization. That accountability does not come. Even if you look into a communist Soviet Union and Russia today, every development is a playoff in the technology development phase between 2 or 3 players.
Yes.
Unless there is a competition, you will not accelerate the whole process. And you will not develop technologies and you will not ensure supply chains are in your control unless there is competition. So these are all, factors that are set in India over 50 years. It's not possible to undo this overnight unless the government is fully determined and brings in hire and fire policies to ensure better efficiency and accountability comes into the picture. And then, of course, I have also suggested in my report in 2014, HAL or any other public sector must be corporatized in the model of private corporate governance, wherein the overall results of the industry must determine whether a person continues or gets fired. Not just the top person, many of the intermediate leaders as well.
And they should introduce a no competition clause that they'll perform poorly here, Group Captain Vinod, just so that they can get hired by a foreign arms manufacturing aviation industry somewhere in France or somewhere in the United States of America. Group Captain Vinod, there is something that there needs to be a very drastic overhaul of the situation, because some were arguing that why would the air chief raise this publicly, because the situation, it seems, is so bad that it's high time it's raised publicly, debated in public, and sorted out before it's too late.
Yeah, of course, he didn't raise it in public. It was some wonderful cameraman and a good unidirectional mic that picked up this particular talk that he has between the chairman HL. But be that as it may, Gaurav, the problem is real. See, in a critical technology, completely privatization is not possible. So maybe a private-public partnership kind of PPP. Yes. PPP model is something which we can look at, where 51% is, say, held by the state, and the rest of the 49% can be disinvested, including bringing MNCs. If you look at, again, I keep coming back to Embraer as an example. Oppenheimer is a large conglomerate which has pumped in billions of dollars into Embraer and made Embraer what it is today. Embraer was nobody in front of HAL. They were doing crop duster aircraft, mind you, in 1994. Today they are making Phenom 300 and what have you. So the fact of the matter still remains that you have to reduce dependencies, improve efficiency, increase your number of bays, that is your real estate, where you can start manufacturing from. The Atmanirbhar push and the capability, both have to converge somewhere. You can't have the same capability. And while you are doing an Atmanirbhar push, earlier we were buying aircraft, today we are producing aircraft. We need to produce in larger, swath, a larger footprint on the ground. Maybe take over, I don't know, I'm just thinking out of that. Maybe take over Yelahanka completely and start producing aircraft out of there and move the training establishment out of Yelahanka. Or
absolutely. Transport training or intermediate training can move anywhere else. Air Marshal Matishwaran, you understand this, better than anybody else. You've written a report on this, and there were reports that you were likely to head Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So who better than you to tell us? We know the problem. What, in your appreciation, is the solution so that LCA happens on time, and then Mark 1, Mark 1A, Mark 2, and then AMCA?
Gaurav, many things I think we should understand carefully before we actually, blame everybody for various things. One is HAL has been developed with many divisions in different parts of the country. Normally, when you develop an aerospace industry or aeronautical industry, I think the business angle or the professional angle should govern how the ecosystem develops. And you don't build a components industry miles away in Lucknow. You don't build an engine industry in a backward region in Orissa where human resources become a problem. So HAL is afflicted by locations of its industry. It has been. Now I suppose it must have overcome quite a few of these. So one of the fundamental reasons that afflicts the overall, productivity and efficiency of work is also the political nature of locating various subdivisions of HAL in different parts of the world. We should understand that first. Now we've moved well beyond that. Now we are allowing the ecosystem to develop. It's going to take a long time because the initial steps have not been adequately, placed. You need to correct that over a period of time. Like I said, the HR policy, the public sector, holdings policy, like Agustin pointed out, the government still holds a golden veto in the Brazilian government holds golden veto in the Embraer, but its holding is reduced to 10%. But that's not the case in our case, right? So we need to look at many of the reforms that we need to do. All these reforms have been suggested. And one of the larger reforms that needs to be, that's been suggested for 50 years plus and consistently overlooked and not implemented is the formation of a National Aeronautics Commission, which
Yes.
oversees the overall strategy for development and control over critical technologies in the country. Until that comes in, the issue of accountability, the issue of actually strategizing your production issues, all that, takes a back seat. Unfortunately, many of these decisions are politicized or they're taken in a political nature, which does not contribute to efficient, work efficiency or productivity, and also does not address the security issues effectively. And that's why we find
10 years of Narendra Modi government.
No, 1 second. Let me finish, Gaurav.
Okay, go on, sir.
That's in '78 when China modernized. Both our aerospace capabilities are more or less nearly the same, correct, in industry-wise. Of course, China was a little ahead. But today, in the last week of December, China has test flown the prototypes of 6th generation fighter aircraft. The world over, Europe is bypassing the 5th generation program altogether, and they moved on to the 6th generation project. We are still,
on the 4th.
Where we are, where we are. Okay. So I think we need to actually take a massive relook and introspection and re-strategize and take some firm, hard decisions to address these issues.
Now,
supply chain is one of the weakest areas in our entire problem.
Oh, absolutely. Now, if we were to talk about immediate steps, and when it comes to Tejas Mark 1A, for the squadron strength, which is depleted down, as you said, to about 32, 33, God forbid, shouldn't go below 30, instead of the sanctioned 39.5. I want to understand, Group Captain Vinod, what can be done now? Increase the number of bays in Bengaluru, or how do you get them to start working at Nashik? How does that get encouraged? Do we still wait for all the G414 engines? Is there hope of the Kaveri engine, or is that really way ahead in the future?
Nothing is going to change overnight, Gaurav.
True.
And unless, like the Marshal said, unless there is a systemic change that is put in place, and minus the power corridors. When I say power corridors, I include the entire power corridors of the HAL line, as well as the power corridors of the ministry line. And someone really sits down and takes a decision, like the Doge is doing, and say, okay, this is how my future for HAL or for aviation looks like in India. Then things will get debated like this, and will again fall back to the lowest common denominator. So that is the shape of things to come. Things will change, things will improve. It will not improve at that pace. I seriously, at that time also, I almost congratulated the Air Marshal when he was about to leave, or we heard that he is leaving to take over HAL as chairman, but that didn't happen. Imagine if he had. Now that it's water, a lot of water.
Okay. That's why I think, Gaurav, if I intervene.
Kindly, sir.
That is different. But I've written about it a couple of months back. See, engine, the G404 engine, the orders are there for 83 aircraft, plus 97 following for the Mark 1As as well. So total of 180 aircraft is what we are looking at, which at the moment, they're all supposed to be powered by G404 engines. The rate at which I don't have confidence that G will accelerate their supply lines for this engine. So what I had suggested was it's time to now follow a two-engine policy for the Mark 1A aircraft.
Okay.
So while you wait for the 404, you also look at possibly the French engine or any other engine that fits in with minimal, integration issues, and have a twin-engine policy that will send a strategic message to also the countries who are supposed to honor the contract and suppliers the way they are supposed to have contracted for. And second, it gives you better options. Third, it also addresses the enhancement of your aero engine capabilities by interacting with another engine manufacturer and probably getting it produced within the country.
But can the airframe, and you know that so much better, and Group Captain Vinod, the airframes changes would have to be made for the French engine vis-a-vis the American engine?
No,
Absolutely
no change.
Some Safran engine or the erstwhile Snecma engine and GE 404, 414, minor changes will have to be made. That is what I was speaking to one of the test pilots today. He was saying, yes,
No.
the minor changes have to be made to mate the new engine. Not that we didn't have two engine policy earlier. We had the Kiran is a case in point. We had two engines operating on two different, on the same airframe.
Okay.
We were calling it Kiran Mark 1 Alpha and Kiran Mark 2. So Bristol Orpheus engine and the other engine we were operating on Kiran. So two engine option is something we could and we should look at.
Marshal Matheeshwaran, you wanted to come in on this, sir?
Yeah. So if you look at the F-16 history, the US Air Force followed a two-engine policy. One lot was with the General Electric engine, the other lot was with Pratt & Whitney engine. Later on, of course, everything became General Electric. But to accelerate your development process and accelerate the manufacturing, and reduce the supply chain constraints, this is one of the solutions. And in the long term, it is also a good strategic, probably the solution that we can look at.
Just as an aside, while we are talking about this, because when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, what about our own Kaveri engine? Where are we on that, Group Captain Vinod?
I'm hearing good things about Kaveri. Probably the person I'm talking to is a good friend of mine. He's hinted that the Kaveri was supposed to do for flying trials just before this Aero India, but now got pushed to next month or next to next month. We will have Kaveri doing an airborne trial, which is something music to my ears. But for it to mature to mate to the aeroplane, we are some time away, and that sometime currently I don't think we can quantify. Maybe a couple of years. That is what is my take on the subject.
Okay. Marshal Matheeshwaran, last word. Go on, sir. On the Kaveri engine.
So the Kaveri is an extremely important project. So I was involved in the study when DRDO initially proposed, bringing in Snecma to partner and address the issues in Kaveri in 2008. But I found that was actually replacing the Kaveri with the Snecma engine, which I objected to, and then it fell off. The deal fell off. But the Kaveri had its problems. It was a very ambitious project, and therefore the time and the delays that have taken place.
Okay.
But Aero Engine is the most complex, program.
Absolutely.
If a country addresses masters the development of an Aero Engine, then it would address every element of the aerospace technology.
Absolutely, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. Air Marshal Matheeshwaran and Group Captain Vinod for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks on a day that Air Chief Marshal AP Singh has red flag delays and the chalta hai attitude at Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. And clearly, for Atmanirbhar Bharat to be a success, HAL will have to pull up its socks and deliver. We'll track that story closely. I now want to move to another very important story, and this is heartening to hear. Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, he spoke exclusively to India Today on reports of China's 6th generation aircraft and also on the changing nature of warfare. We also spoke to General Upendra Dwivedi, the Chief of the Army Staff, and how are the armed forces coping with these changes in warfare and future warfare. India Today's Manjeet Singh Negi with this India Today exclusive.
आम का जो प्रोग्राम है आप लोग को उसका जो एक मॉडल है ऑनरेबल रक्षा मंत्री जी ने इनॉग्रेशन के टाइम में इंडिया पेवेलियन में आपको अनवील करके दिखाया. तो ये हमारा प्रोग्राम है जो कि 5th जनरेशन एयरक्राफ्ट है.
सर आज तीसरा दिन है एरो इंडिया का. ओवरऑल क्या सक्सेस आप देखते हैं इस बार जिस तरह से बात की जा रही मेक इन इंडिया मेक फॉर वर्ल्ड, ऐसे सेक्रेटरी डीएमए के तौर पर अगर आप बात करें तो किस तरह से ओवरऑल सक्सेस को देखते हैं?
देखो किसी भी एरो इंडिया की जो सक्सेस है वो उसके काफ़ी सारे मापदंड पैमाने हो सकते हैं. सबसे तो बड़ा है फुटफॉल्स, फॉरेन ओईएम्स कितने आए हैं, इंडियन ओईएम्स कितने हैं. इसके अलावा जो हम पुराने इस तरह के एरो इंडिया या डिफेंस एक्सपो में देखते थे, जो सफलता के मापदंड होते थे वो बाय एंड सेलिंग के एमओयूज़ के बारे में होते थे. बट आज जो मैं देख रहा हूँ ये एमओयूज़ जो हैं जॉइंट प्रोडक्शन के ऊपर ज़्यादा फोकस्ड हैं. इसके अलावा जो है जॉइंट R&D के ऊपर फोकस्ड हैं. सो ये ग्रेजुअल शिफ्ट है. सो ये एरो इंडिया की सक्सेस को दिखाता है और हमारे आत्मनिर्भर प्रोग्राम को सक्सेस दिखाता है.
At Aero India, we have with us the Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi to talk to us. Sir, a very warm welcome on India Today. So how has been the experience? You've been looking around the exhibition. How the defense capabilities and the preparedness is growing?
So as you have seen that all kinds of aspirations which we have, those aspirations are being met here, starting from the UAVs and Raptors and electronic warfare, network-centric warfare, counter-US equipment, and even air defense. So this is what is our future requirement, and I'm glad to see that the latest equipment is being brought from all over the world. And what we are looking at, it needs to be collaborated in India. Once you have a collaboration in India, the Make in India is something which we are going to buy.